Let me ask you something most parents never stop long enough to consider. Where exactly are you leading your child? Not next semester, not whether they make honors classes, varsity, or student council, not which AI tutoring app or homework tool might give them an edge in the world that already feels more competitive and more complicated than the one you grew up in. I mean, eventually, when adulthood finally arrives, when you set down the last box in their first apartment and drive away, what do you hope is already inside of them? Here's the uncomfortable part. Whatever the answer is, the window for building it is smaller than you think, and it's already closing. I'm Alan Nelson. I spent the last years as a leadership professor studying how young people develop the capacities that let them thrive as adults. Not to mention my wife and me raising 3 sons of our own. The first 25 years of my career, I was a pastor, seeing behind the scenes of what goes on in the lives of families like yours. I currently teach at the Naval Postgraduate School, where my students include Navy SEALs, Top Gun pilots, NASA engineers, and military officers from other countries. I want to be upfront about something. BestParentCourse.com isn't another book on how to parent. You've read those, or at least skimmed them, and you already know how to get a kid to bed on time, manage a chore chart, or navigate a hard conversation about a phone. This book assumes you're already a competent, thoughtful parent. What it's actually about is something most parenting books never touch: what your child needs to have inside them by the time they leave your house so that the next 60 years of their life go well. And before you tune out because your calendar is already full between work, school, and 3 different extracurricular schedules, hear this. What I'm about to describe doesn't ask you to add anything to that calendar. It's not a new activity, a new class, or another Saturday commitment. It's a different way of using the time you're already spending with your kids, in the car, at the dinner table, during chores, on the sideline of practice. Free. Built into the life you're already living. Here's what I've noticed after decades of working with parents, most of them just as busy and just as educated as you are. We're asking the wrong questions. We ask, how do I get my child to do better at math? How do I manage their screen time? How do I get them to do their chores, make friends, handle anxiety? Every one of those questions is legitimate, but they all miss something. The thing in front of you is rarely the actual problem. It's a symptom. Underneath it sits a capacity that either got built or didn't. So the book, BestParentCourse.com, makes a case for 5 capacities every child needs, the same 5 that no app, tutor, or algorithm can install for them. I call them the 5, and I want to walk you through them because once you see them, you won't be able to unsee them in your own kids. Resourcefulness. Resourcefulness is what your child does when the plan falls apart and no adult is standing there to fix it, figuring things out instead of waiting to be rescued. Responsibility. Responsibility is owning the outcome, not just completing the task. The difference between a kid who does what they're told and one who feels the weight of how something turns out and carries it. Resilience. Resilience is what happens after the setback. Not toughness for its own sake, but the capacity to absorb a hit, stay steady, and come back stronger instead of getting flattened by it. Communication. Communication is getting an idea across so it actually lands, and taking in what someone else is saying well enough to understand them, especially when you disagree. It's far more about conversation than it is how much or how little a child talks. And the 5th is collaboration. Collaboration is making something happen with people who have their own ideas, their own pace, and their own moods. The grown-up version of this is teamwork. Almost everything worth doing in life requires this one, and it's built on the top of the other 4. Notice something. None of these 5 require your child to become anything in particular. Not a class president, not a star athlete, not valedictorian. A resourceful, responsible, resilient, communicative, collaborative adult thrives in a marriage, a friendship, a career, and every hard season life throws at them. That's the whole premise of the book. Thriving, built skill by skill, whether or not your child ever holds a title that says so. Now here's why I'd ask you not to set this aside for later. Researchers who study adult flourishing, not just getting by, but actually flourishing, have found that only about 1 in 5 American adults meet the criteria for it. The other 4 sit somewhere between coping and quietly languishing, and that number hasn't moved in years. That's not a statistic about children. That's a statistic about where your child is headed as an adult if the 5 don't get built somewhere along the way. Most parents never hear this number until it's too late to use it. Here's the part I think you'll find genuinely surprising, especially if you're the kind of parent who's already read the research on this. There's one particular skill, one specific thing you as a parent need to develop that catalyzes all 5 of these in your child at once. Not 5 separate interventions, not 5 different programs, one. I found it by accident, honestly, after 2 decades of training and observing thousands of children across 8 countries. It's not something you'll find in the usual parenting literature, and it surprised me too, because for years I had a version of it half right before I understood why it actually worked. I lay the whole case out in the book, chapter by chapter, along with exactly how to build it into the routines you already have, the drive to school, dinner, chores, without hiring anyone, signing up for anything, or finding 1 extra hour in your week. I'll tell you this much, it's simpler than you'd expect. And once you see it, you'll recognize it was hiding in plain sight there the entire time you've been raising your kids. Now, a word about timing, because this is the part that should genuinely concern you. If your child is somewhere between 5 and 15, you're inside a window that won't stay open. It's the stretch of childhood when a young person is developmentally ready to build these 5 capacities before the habits, defenses, and independence of the later teenage years make training so much harder to introduce. For some of you watching this, that window is already half closed. For a few of you, it's closing this year. It doesn't reopen at 16, and it doesn't reopen when your child moves out. Whatever doesn't get built now gets built later, slower, and at a greater cost, if it gets built at all. There's a reason these 5 capacities matter more today than they did a generation ago, and it's not the tired argument that kids these days are somehow softer. It's that the everyday situations that used to build these skills almost by accident, walking to school, running a lemonade stand, sorting out playground conflicts, have quietly thinned out. The child's schedule is fuller and more supervised than yours ever was, which means fewer of the small, unscripted moments that used to do this work automatically. And there's a forward-looking reason too. As artificial intelligence takes over more of the calculating and drafting and looking things up, the capacities a machine can't replicate, carrying the weight of a decision, recovering from a real failure, reading a room, holding a group together, are exactly the 5 this book is about. They're about to matter more, not less, in the workforce your child is walking into. If you're the kind of parent who reads the research before you trust a framework, you'll appreciate that this one isn't built on theory. It's built on 2 decades of watching real children in real homes, in classrooms, in leadership programs across multiple cultures, alongside 25 years of sitting with families through the messiest and most honest parts of their lives. Nancy and I raised 3 sons ourselves, imperfectly, the way every parent does. Let me be direct about the time question one more time, because I know it's the real objection sitting underneath all of this. You are not being asked to become a different kind of parent or a busier one. The families who do this well aren't the ones who found extra hours. They're the ones who stopped treating the hours they already had in the car, over dishes, on a Saturday errand as dead time, and started treating them as the material this work is made of. It costs nothing. It competes with nothing on the calendar. It simply asks you to see what's already there differently. So here's my invitation. And I'd rather you act on it right now than add it to a list you'll revisit someday. Get the book. Read or listen to it with a pen in hand, because I promise you'll want to score your own kids against the 5 as you go. Most parents can't help themselves. You'll walk away with a framework simple enough to remember and substantial enough to actually change what your household is building in the years you have left with them at home, which are fewer than they feel like right now. It's called bestparentcourse.com. 5 skills your child needs to thrive, and the 1 skill that builds them all. You can find it wherever you get your books. The portal is open right now. It won't stay that way. Don't miss it.